Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm actually going to be talking about a video I saw on Boyce Watkins' channel, and I basically wanted to touch on some hypocritical points that he made in this video. Now, this video was about Issa Rae and basically that episode of Insecure in which she was at Coachella and she basically had unprotected sex with the guy, aka Ghost Bae, in the Ferris wheel at Coachella. Now, Boyce Watkins talked about how Issa Rae's character is basically, promoting or quote unquote promoting unprotected and, promiscuous sex in her show, or her character is promoting that by when she had sex with this guy in the Ferris wheel, and how it's bad for the image, especially it's bad for, young Black women or young Black girls, because we are predominantly leading in HIV infections. And yes, this is true. From the statistics being showed, Black women have high rates of HIV infections, and a lot of it's coming from, or at least one of the main areas it's coming from, is having unprotected sex. And honestly, look, I'm going to touch on this a little bit before I go further in my viewpoints of Dr. Boyce Watkins' video. I do agree that Black women, we really need to put a lot of emphasis on protective sex. I'm telling you, condoms are not that scarce, okay? I do think that they could be overpriced, but you can go to the free clinic and get some, okay? Some of them, I heard they actually have quality condoms and quality contraceptives at low or no cost. You can actually get some Trojans, you can actually get some, Durex if you use them. The whole point is they are more accessible. They are more accessible in this day and age than they probably were a long time ago, okay? And HIV does not have to be contacted through mainly sex, but you can get it through infected blood. So this is why you shouldn't use people's razors. This is why you should watch out if someone gets cut around you. So this is also, it can also be permitted. It can also be transmitted through mothers who have active, HIV and other STDs, breastfeeding their children. Some people are born with it. Watch out who you share needles by. You had drug addicts sharing needles, so that gives them infections of HIV and stuff. There are many other ways other than sex to get HIV, but sex and blood is just the most common. Now, from what I heard on Chrissy's channel, which I'm glad I found out, which I didn't know before, Chrissy did a video, and in that video, she said women are more likely to be susceptible to contracting or to being infected with STDs because the way our vaginas are set up, our genital areas are set up to be very, very vulnerable to that, because unlike men, we don't have like that layer of skin that comes to protecting ourselves. So this is why we should take extra precautions. Now, what I'm going to get into here, also, side note, just remember, protection. If you're not big on birth control, if you don't trust the IUD, which I don't trust the implant either, where they put it in your arm. I don't trust that. And birth control does not protect against HIV or any other STDs. So condoms, okay? Especially if you're not in a committed relationship with the person. Always stress using a condom. Do not let these guys out here fool you into raw dogging, telling you they're going to pull out. Do not take that. Girls, ladies, use a condom and check the expiration date on that condom. Look up how to make sure your condom is more likely effective, because they say it's like 97 to 99% effective. So take this extra precaution, okay? Now, I'm going to get into the hypocritical factors of Dr. Boyce, his video on that. I'm going to get into what I found hypocritical about it. So he made some very good talking points, and you can watch the video for yourself. I'll link it in the description. But he made a good talking point in terms of don't be wild and don't be loose, because this is not a good, example. And I get it. This show is by her. This show is centered around her as the main character. But let's just be honest. The very next episode of that, because I watch Insecure, the very next episode after that it was of Lawrence. Lawrence was in that video in that episode in the beginning, having unprotected sex with a group of women. And I know it takes only one time to get infected, but he ends up with chlamydia. He has unprotected sex is just having sex with a bunch of different women, fast and loose, and he goes to the doctor and he ends up with chlamydia. He even has to call all the women in his phone saying, hey, you might have to get yourself tested. I have chlamydia. I just want to know if I got it from you, or you should get yourself tested. And he calls one woman and says, and the woman says, oh yeah, we never had sex. And he's like, wait, really? And then she says, wow, you're having sex so much that you can't even keep track of who you're having sex with. So he's out here being fast and loose while Issa Rae is only having sex with one. And now look, she has had a few sexual partners, but it wasn't as extreme as what Lawrence was doing. And he actually ends up with chlamydia. Trust me. HIV may be a serious STD, but it's not the only one. We should be protecting ourselves against a lot of other STDs. But I find it funny. Boyce Watkins did not make a video talking about how Lawrence was smashing and bashing. He was not talking about how Lawrence was having unprotected sex with all these different women and how he should strap up, how the men should also take responsibility. Because like Chrissy said, 9 times out of 10, we're not getting HIV, we're not the only ones getting HIV. Like Chrissy said, we're getting HIV or we're getting STDs from having heterosexual sex with men, specifically Black men. And that could be from another number of factors. We're always hearing about the Down Low brothers. I remember watching an episode of Our America with Lisa Ling before she ended it, was the final season. And they talked about HIV, especially HIV in the Black community. Now, she said there was one guy who went to prison and he intentionally infected HIV to all his female sex partners he got after prison. Okay, some people get it through, like I said, infected blood. You never know. Sometimes it's not just sex. It's not only sex. It's infected blood. Sometimes, like I said, some people are born with it. They talked about that in Our America. And this is why I kind of am happy that they had the thing called PrEPs. I'm not sure how truly effective that is, but I heard PrEPs, you take it long enough and you get to the point where you're undetectable and you can't, infect anybody else. So that is a good thing if that is working, if that actually works. Okay. But I find it funny. Boyce, you're not making a video about how the Black man should also strap up and how the Black men should have unprotected sex. What is that teaching to Black men? It's funny how you're trying to police Black women, and I get it. Black women have higher rates and highest rates of HIV. Yes, I get it. However, why aren't you teaching the Black men to strap up so they don't give HIV or other STDs to the women, or so they don't get it in general? Yes, they're least prone to it, okay, in terms of, having that skin on their genital area to make them less susceptible to contracting HIV and STDs other than women. But still, that shouldn't be the case. They should also take responsibility for themselves, because you talked about how, when you are fast and loose with women and then you end up with HIV and when you end up with STDs. But it's funny how the man should not be responsible. You didn't make a follow-up video talking about Lawrence. So I have to find some of your videos, your talking points in that video were valid, were very valid, but I'd rather hear this coming from a woman, and not at the expense of women. I'd rather hear it coming from a woman criticizing women, or at least constructively criticizing women and educating women, rather than a man who won't keep that same energy. And I'm not saying he doesn't 100% keep that same energy, but I find it funny how you're going to make a video about Issa Rae. Yes, it's her show, and yes, it's centered around her, but you're not going to make a follow-up video talking about Lawrence, who actually ends up with the STD in the next video. I mean, that sounds very hypocritical, and it honestly sounds like I wouldn't say you're doing this, but it comes off a little bit as you're being very one-sided, and it comes off as if you're not really keeping that same energy. You're just trying to critique the woman. And I personally feel like maybe there is some underlying, criticisms or underlying things you feel towards Issa Rae, and you just simply don't like Issa Rae for some reason, or you just don't necessarily like the show or F with her. So it's much easier to criticize something you're not really supporting. So, but I honestly have to call out that hypocrisy, especially as it pertains to Black men. towards Black women. It seems like you're policing our choices and you're critiquing our choices, but you're not keeping that same energy for Black men. And what I don't like about making this video is that Dr. Boyce, I actually think he makes great financial points, and I actually had subscribed to his YouTube channel a while back, a long time ago, but then I eventually unsubscribed because I'm saying all your news reports was about trying to pick and dissect everything that involves race and racism, white supremacy. And it seemed like it became less about just financial literacy and economic education, and it just became more about talking about this racism, white supremacy stuff. And although, like I said, it needs to be said, it needs to be taught, but I think some of your videos, especially in your titles, tend to be a reach. But that's beside the point. So anyway, yes, that's all I had to say. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.